I'm going to be using the 2-bucket method today to detail the truck. This is a 4.5 gallon bucket from Chemical Guys. And here you're seeing a grit guard that you can place at the bottom of the bucket. That's going to prevent our sponge from picking up any debris that may settle to the bottom of the bucket. That's an optional thing, it's not necessary, but I like to use it. So I'm going to be filling this with 4.5 gallons of fresh water. This particular bucket is going to be my soap bucket. So I'm going to be putting in Dawn dishwashing liquid soap. I'm going to be using about 2 ounces for the entire 4.5 gallons of water. The reason for using Dawn is that I need to be able to strip off any wax on the paint surface, and Dawn does so safely. If you're doing a maintenance wash, please use an automotive soap specifically formulated to not remove the wax surface. Since I will be performing a full detail today, I do want to use the Dawn dishwashing soap so that I can remove any prior contaminants from the surface and start with a clean slate. Next, I'm going to bring in an assortment of microfiber mitts and sponges. This here is a mitt. I'm going to primarily use this for the top of the vehicle and work my way down. Next, I have a sponge that is 2-sided. The other side here is useful for cleaning off any bug debris that kind of collects at the front of the vehicle. Here I'm using another different colored sponge. The different color for me designates that I'm going to be using it on dirtier surfaces like the bottom of the rocker panels. And here is another microfiber mitt that I'm going to be placing over an extension pole, which makes it easier to reach the top of the vehicle and the hood. Now I'm going to prepare my second bucket. This bucket is just going to be 4.5 gallons of fresh water. I'm going to go ahead and include another grit guard just in case. This will reduce any chance of you collecting any dirt or grime from the bottom of your bucket when you go to rinse out your sponge or mitt. What I like about these Chemical Guys buckets is that they have a watertight seal on the lid, which prevents any accidental spills if you take your bucket to the local car wash. As I said before, I'm using the 2-bucket method, and on my left I have my soapy water, and on my right I have my clean water. Here again I'm using Dawn as my soap to strip off any prior wax layers from the vehicle. Here are some additional brushes that may be used on tire sidewalls or the wheel spokes itself, just to give it some additional abrasion. The pressure washer I'll be using is a Karcher pressure washer. For the pre-rinse, I'm going to be using 2 ounces of the Chemical Guys Maxi Sets 2 automotive soap, which is specially formulated for spray foam guns. This here is the attachment for the Karcher sprayer washer. It's going to foam up and remove any loose dirt from the surface of the vehicle without us having to put any pressure on the paint. So this will prevent any scratching of the surface and remove most of the loose elements on the vehicle. I'm going to be using the Zano clay bar to be removing any impurities from the paint. I'm just used to using the Zano product line, but there are other clay bars available as well. We're also going to be needing a lubricant to allow that clay bar to glide along the paint. So we are going to be using a half capful of the Zano car wash. Now you can use other car washes as well, but in this case we're just going to be sticking to the Zano product line. We're going to be putting a half cap full of the automotive soap into a container that is 16 ounces with water. I'm going to be using the Ego One Wheel and Tire Cleaner. This is a spray foam that I'm going to be using to remove any of the dirt and grime that builds up on the wheel and the tire sidewall. If the tire and wheel cleaner doesn't get the job done, then you may want to wait until it's fully dried and then try some additional solvent such as Goof Off or Contractor Solvent. In step 1, we're going to be applying the tire and wheel cleaner. You want to apply this while everything is still dry, and you just want to get a nice coat over the entire surface of the sidewall. You can also spray it on the wheel if you'd like, and let that sit there and soak in for about 45 seconds per tire, and then immediately rinse it off. You do not want to let the spray dry on the tire, as it may stain the tire sidewall. So here my wife is just going around spraying the tires for me, and I'll follow up behind her with the spray washer. If for some reason your tire sidewalls are extra dirty and need a little bit of persuading, then you can use a tire and wheel brush to kind of agitate the dirt before you begin your rinse. Due to the high water pressures coming out of the end of the pressure washer, it is recommended that you stay about 12 to 16 inches away from any painted surfaces, as this may cause damage to the paint. Since I'm just spraying the sidewall here, I can get much closer, which will aid in removing any of the stains on the sidewall. Now I'm just going to repeat that same process for all the other tires. Once all wheels and tires have been cleaned, we are going to rinse the entire vehicle top to bottom. I start at the top so that the dirt makes its way down the vehicle. As you're spraying the vehicle, just be mindful of the distance that you are away from the vehicle. You want to be at least 12 to 16 inches away from any painted surface. Another thing to do is to keep that nozzle moving. You don't want to sit in one particular spot, as that may also cause paint damage. Next, I'm going to attach my foam spray attachment to my pressure washer. This already has the mixture of soap and water in the container, and I'm going to start from the top once again, spraying down the vehicle. You may want to keep the pace that I'm going, as the container will run out fairly quickly, maybe within a minute or two. So keep the pace so that you will be able to cover the entire vehicle. After foaming the entire vehicle, just give it another 30 to 45 seconds to foam up and carry away any loose debris along with it. This will make it a lot easier to rinse away any dirt and grime. Now I'm going to rinse the entire vehicle once again from top to bottom. I want to make sure that this vehicle is as clean as possible using this contactless method before we begin the next step. Don't forget to spray underneath your side steps, as this is where a lot of mud and dirt can get trapped. Now we're going to be dipping our microfiber sponge or mitt into the soapy water, and we're going to be rubbing the top of the vehicle here, and we're just going to work our way top down again, always allowing the dirt to naturally cascade off the vehicle. A good idea here is to just wash one section at a time and then rinse immediately. That will help prevent that soap from drying up on your painted surfaces. You always want to keep your vehicle as wet as possible. Do not allow it to dry in the sun. Here you can see that we're parked in the shade to help prevent that. And also notice how I'm washing one section at a time and then dipping my microfiber sponge into my clean water bucket to rinse it out, and then re-dipping it into the soapy water bucket to get some new soap. Always like to use a variety of sponges when performing my detail, because I use the extension wand to reach to get to hard to reach places. I use the mitt on pretty much the main surfaces, and I may use the sponge for places where I need to use the backside to remove like stubborn bug splats from the front grille. And then I'll use the blue colored microfiber sponges or towels to just clean the bottom half of the vehicle. Here you can see I stop right at the line there before I reach the bottom part where the rocker panel starts, and so that is usually where most of the dirt and grime will start sticking to your paint from road debris or stuff that just kind of slings off of your tires. So that is the area that's the most dirty, and I just want to use the other colored microfiber sponges so that I don't accidentally start using those sponges on the top half of the vehicle. I don't want to take any risks in applying those dirty sponges to the better part of the vehicle, because there may be some dirt and debris stuck on those particular sponges. And so keeping those separate will keep your paint from being scratched accidentally. You don't need to really apply any major pressure unless you're just kind of working in an area that is kind of has some stubborn grime. Something like bug guts is always hard to remove, which may take some pressure. However, if you don't get it all off, don't worry. There are some detail sprays that you can use after your vehicle has been completely washed and dried that will help remove any remaining stubborn debris. Here I'm switching over to use the sponge. I'm using the a more abrasive side, which is kind of a mesh on the back side, to try to remove as many of the bug guts as I can. Here's an example of where I'm washing down to the line where the curvature on the vehicle begins. That's the lower part of the vehicle that gets the most rock dings and tar from the road. So I kind of stop at that line with that particular sponge, as I do not want to start getting any of that major dirt and grime into that particular sponge. So then I go to swap it out for my blue sponge, which I only use on the bottom half of the vehicle. After giving all the panels a thorough wash, we want to make sure that everything is rinsed once again from top to bottom before we begin the next step. Now I'm going to prepare my clay bar. Here's a brand new clay bar from Zano. I don't necessarily need to use the entire clay bar, so that's why I'm breaking it in half here. And I'm going to save the other half for another claying. Now I'm going to take half of that clay bar and just kind of start kneading it with my hands. That way it's going to become a little bit more pliable. I want to work it just for a couple of minutes and kind of flatten it out. This will make it a lot easier to conform to the shape of your vehicle surface of whatever you're claying. So you don't want to have it too flat or too large. This is the perfect size for me. And I'm just going to get my lubricant. And the lubricant again here is just a half cap full of the Zano car wash with I think it's 16 ounces of water. And I'm just going to apply some of that lubricant directly to the surface of the vehicle and the clay bar. And I'm going to just barely put any pressure on that clay bar, working it in one direction on the vehicle. This is going to start lifting up any contaminants on the surface, and it's going to start sticking to the clay bar. If you have a particular area that's very stubborn, you may need to clay bar that area for a little bit more. And as you notice here, I'm just spraying just ahead of the area that I'm going to be claying, so that the clay bar will just kind of glide along the surface. If you start to see major specks on your clay bar, then you'll need to re-knead it every couple of minutes so that you get a kind of a fresh surface of the clay bar exposed, and that'll prevent you from marring up your paint even more. If you ever drop your clay bar on the ground, it's done. Don't use it again. You may inadvertently get dirt, such as rocks, into the clay bar, and then you do not want to have that scratching up your paint. So throw it away, start with another piece. To prevent the spray lubricant from drying on each panel, I would recommend just as soon as you finish one panel to rinse it off, or have somebody else help you rinse it off as you continue working your way around the vehicle. The clay bar process is probably one of the more painstaking parts of the detail, as it takes some time to do each panel, and especially on a vehicle that has a lot of intricate folds, it takes some time to kind of re-knead your clay bar to fit those areas. but this is probably one of the most crucial steps in the detail process, as this will get you that smooth like glass feel, so be sure not to skip this step. While I'm clay barring the vehicle, Jessica's also taking the time to clean each of the wheels. She has her own bucket of water and soap so that we do not use that same water on the vehicle. So after a long day of clay barring, what we did after finishing the clay bar process is we washed the vehicle one more time using the Dawn liquid dish soap so that we made sure that there wasn't any remaining residue on the vehicle from the clay bar process. So here's Jessica just wrapping up the rinse after having done another wash that we completed after the clay bar process. For the last step of the day, I'm using my large microfiber towel to dry the vehicle. Notice that I'm not smearing the towel across the paint surface. I'm just laying it on a particular portion and then applying some pressure to help the towel absorb the water. I've allowed the vehicle to dry thoroughly overnight. Now I'm going to be applying Z7 detail spray from Zano to remove any slight dust that may have settled on the vehicle, as well as any water spots. I'm also using two borderless microfiber towels, one for applying the Zano and the other one for buffing. This detail spray is fairly concentrated, so use sparingly. Has a nice smell too. Cherry. So it's best to work in small sections with this detail spray. So for instance, if you were to divide the hood into sections, I would divide that into quarter sections. If you were working on a door, I would do half of a door. If you're working on a quarter panel, I would do it in 2 sections. The goal here is that you spray just enough so that you're able to wipe it onto the panel so that it can evaporate evenly. You do not want to spray it onto the panel and just let it dry. So the next step would be to apply the wax of your choice. I unfortunately didn't have any video of that. Here's just a little bit of video that we have of us actually trying to remove the wax. After buffing off the wax, you'll be left with a nice, rewarding mirror finish. We also took the time to apply Zano tire shine to the tires. Looks very nice. Typically, I would use Zano wax to apply to all of my vehicles. However, Zano wax can be very difficult to remove if you don't apply it in very thin coats. So to reduce the effort, I've decided to go with the turtle wax, which was a lot easier to remove. Now, this wax may not last as long as Zano, but I think because of the reduced effort, it's definitely worth it. Zano, I think, typically lasts like 6 months to a year for my cars, so this vehicle being parked outside will definitely need a couple of these coats applied each year, and this makes it really easy. If you take pride in the look of your vehicle, take the extra time, put in the effort, and you will get good results. Until next time, see you soon.